3-4, knock at the door. Like blacked out teeth, the boarded up storefronts gave Vero Beach Mall a jack-o'-lantern look. Harold parked his Ford Crown Royal under the palm trees far to the west side of the mall. No use being spotted by some nosy neighbor. He left the air conditioning running as he fished under the seat for his stash of finishing touches. Gold cufflinks, tube of pomade, a devilish wink at his debonair reflection in the mirror, and off he went. He practiced his new Latin dance steps across the parking lot, his polished wingtips sinking slightly into the hot tar. Cha, 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 he whispered to his feet. Amazing. They obeyed after all these years. What had it been? 50, 60 years since his disastrous 1-month marriage to a dancing girl? And these feet still remembered how to dance. He switched to the rumba. Forward, sideways, together, back, forward, sideways. A group of 5 or 6 teenagers lounged against a candy apple red Mustang watching Harold's progress. Enjoy being young, he wanted to shout. Don't let the bastards make you small. He longed to join them, admire their car, tell them about life. But if it's true the elderly are deaf, so too are the young. No use telling them how precious this day was. Could they understand the magic of asphalt mingled with fresh popcorn, or their red car, the yellow sun, the green palms, the screeching parrots overhead and the screaming kids on the Ferris wheel across the street? Did they appreciate the power surging in their arms and between their thighs? Memorize this, boys. It's fading faster than you know. Time, Lord God, how it flew. The days a foggy blur one into the other. Had he noticed any colors in the last 50 years? Any smells or sounds? For the life of him, he couldn't recollect one. He'd been buried alive under all these years. If he and Myrna had been able to have children, he would have been a good dad. His own father had tried, but a farm grinds everything into fertilizer, even a man. From the age of 8, Harold worked alongside his dad and could still feel the calloused hand of his father cupped around his neck after they'd fed the chickens or milked the cows. Those chores from 3 p.m. to dinner killed many a dream. Playing football, racing cars with the Kirschman brothers, dating the beautiful Emily. At 14, Harold threw bales for the local feed store and gave his checks to his mom. At 16, he joined the Navy to fight in the war. Then 48, mind-numbing years at Nebraska Truck and Tractor, ordering parts and keeping inventory. A reliable man lies here. That's what they chisel on his headstone. He knew better. Here lies a man who never took chances. As he approached the walkway leading to the shops, a vision of Myrna swam into his thoughts, but he brushed it aside. Of course, she wouldn't like his being here, not one bit. But it wasn't like that. He'd loved Myrna for over 60 years. But Myrna kept him the person she needed, the person she knew, or thought she knew. No fault of hers, she couldn't really see him. That's just marriage. After all these years, not a drop of spontaneity. He was cast in cement. But now, a door had opened a crack, and through the slit, he could see another life, another world, one of color, excitement, even danger. Glancing back toward the boys with their Mustang, he made a mental note to find a pair of their pencil-thin black jeans. Felicia would like that. He'd always been candy to the ladies, for sure. Not that he ever succumbed to the temptation. But at 82, he still had the legs of a 20-year-old. And with this, with Felicia, he'd have to do something about his clothes. Forward, backward, cha-cha-cha. He reached the door of Dr. Montenegro and knocked. Hola, hola, venga, venga, my friend, come in, sang a woman dressed in a white lab coat. Holding the office door open, she took a quick look outside, then reached behind Harold to flip the abierto sign to cerrado. She locked the door, lowered the Venetian blind, and led him into the back room. You look fine today, muy guapo, very pretty. Handsome, Harold corrected, and gave her a quick peck on the cheek. You look pretty. And she did. Felicia Montenegro was more than his dentist. And although on the serious side of 60, she was beautiful. A frenzy of black curls by Lady Clairol certainly cascading onto a voluptuous bosom. Beneath her lab coat, a peacock blue dress spread in waves around her knees, the outfit punctuated by impossibly high tangerine sandals. Felicia covered her fluorescent desk light with a scarf, turning the sterile white walls sunset peach and obscuring the litter of papers on every surface. Harold's fingers itched every time he saw the confusion. At times he had to fold his arms over his chest to keep from straightening the piles, for the love of God. Someday he'd have to set up a filing system for her. Get some order in here. Now Myrna, that was an orderly lady. Musica, si? She asked, sashaying to a white floor-to-ceiling cabinet containing a few medical supplies and an outrageous sound system one of her many nephews said he'd found. Several weeks ago, one of them had wandered in when Harold was getting a tooth capped. Felicia had stuffed Harold's mouth with cotton balls and hung a hose off his lower lip to suck saliva. He felt exposed and vulnerable with the young man staring down at him. The kid left a box on Felicia's desk, took an envelope, and kissed her goodbye on the cheek. "Don't run a business," he wanted to say, but of course, he'd come here in the first place because without a proper license to practice in the U.S., Felicia couldn't charge an arm and a leg. All day while I look in mouths, poke at gums, fill cavities, she told him, I wonder, que música esta noche, que música for you. Then I decide, these horas preciosas we devote to the pasión of Capé Segundo. Ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da. She turned off the examination light over the chair and lit rose-scented candles, lending the office a sense of a voodoo romance. Music, it creates our world, Harold. This world is empty. A pretend world. Kissing Compay's image on the CD cover, she carefully inserted the disc into the player. The scratchy nightclub music began. She's right, thought Harold. The new world flooding his consciousness, blood pulsed in his veins, electricity ignited his limbs and freed his soul. He was young again. Flinging off her white lab coat, Felicia extended her arms and Harold scooped her in against him. At first, the volume of the music rattled his hearing aids. But he'd not only grown accustomed to it, he loved it. The rich bass throbbed beneath the wailing horns, weaving around a voice of smoke, playing so loud no thoughts could invade his pleasure. He held Felicia firmly as she instructed. You lead, I follow. You the man, I the woman. Those words sang to Harold's heart. In the beginning, that mocking critic in his head feared Felicia might whip out a rooster and whack its head off for ritual sacrifice. Now, the rosy warmth carried away from this small office, from his small, small life. Their salsa took them between X-ray machine and chair, around the tiny sink with its swirl of water still gurgling, past the row of dentures Felicia kept for demonstration. Harold felt the roll just below her bra, warm, soft, a kind of pillow. It was his great heartache that Myrna was not fond of music and dancing. Her father, the philandering old son of a bitch, had ruined those pleasures for her. Harold liked Myrna's lean body. He did. But Felicia wouldn't blow away in a strong wind. She could anchor a man. In fact, Harold worried that she did anchor a regular fleet of men. But not today. Fridays were his. Near the tray of dental probes, he dipped her back. A move he'd only practiced in his head. The metal instruments chimed lightly as their hands brushed by. He looked down into Felicia's jet black eyes and gently wiped away a turquoise smudge of iridescent eyeshadow with his thumb. She was a flamboyant bantam hen. You move like a feather, Harold. You learn salsa so quick, like you were born to it. She arched her arm gracefully back,
putting her full weight against his hands. Her trust steeled his muscles. Worries about falls and breaks, arthritis and heart attacks. Old age in general had lately made him so cautious he was near losing his manhood. Christ. Just this week, he received a free chance to win a cremation. If only those bastards had trails and mobile home park, all in varying degrees of coma, could see him here, holding this little hen with one hand. A blush rose in her cheek, making her look far younger than her years. When the song ended, he righted her and reclined in the chair. Remarkably comfortable, these chairs, when one was not being attacked by a drill or a needle. Felicia whirled around 3 times on her stool, then leaned back against the wall, kicked off her heels, and put her feet on Harold's. She lit a black cigarette, the smoke drifting across the lines of light slanting through the closed blinds. Harold coughed. One day he'd have to talk to her about her smoking. Reaching into his pocket, he fumbled to extract a small box. For you. Felicia grabbed the gift and clutched it to her a moment before ripping off the red paper. No, you remembered. She took his hand and kissed it. Me gusto mucho, querido. Harold blushed at the happiness his gift produced. It was Christmas and Felicia a child, untouched by guilt or greed or guile. Just below his joy, however, circled doubt. Had he ever given Myrna anything that produced such a response? Had he ever given her anything at all in recent memory? Well, he reasoned, she never seemed to want anything. The perfume only cost $30. Felicia had had a sample of it. Harold memorized the name. Cucaracha. Which sounded like cockroach, but he bought it anyway. It was all so easy. With Myrna, it wasn't so easy. A sexy mixture of flowers and musk flooded the air and brought him back. That you remembered, that you think about me, that makes me feel so special, she said, spraying the perfume between her breasts. Felicia changed the CD to a slow ballad by some Cuban singer she said was still popular on the island. Harold didn't understand the Spanish lyrics, but it wasn't important. The music and tone were clearly related to the country music of his youth. Real life, filled with hopeless love, tragic endings. Songs that made a body feel good, he mused, because someone knew the feelings of the heart. But misfortune had chased off their wife, had killed their dog. He'd always wondered how such sad music could make someone so happy. Well, people were hungry to feel something, anything. And these days, Harold felt starved. His remaining days stretched out before him, unbroken and dull as a Nebraska highway.
I love this music.
He raised his voice to be heard, and Felicia reached over and turned the volume down a notch. See, it rips at my heart and makes me feel sassy. She cupped her breasts, shimmied her shoulders, and laughed smoke from her nose. We should have a mojito, no? A banging on the door paralyzed them both. Eyes wide, they didn't blink, didn't breathe. Harold's heart gave his ribs 2 kicks. For a moment, he thought it would stop completely, and he worried what Myrna would think if they found his body here. Whoever it was banged sharply twice, then left. Harold sank back in his chair. An hour with Felicia sure put him through his paces, that's for sure. Felicia, unfazed, opened the refrigerator, maneuvered a plastic box around bottles of medicine, pulled out a rum, mint, and limes. Using a dental probe, she muddled mint leaves in a beaker, sending up a spicy sweetness, then handed Harold his drink in a container conveniently marked in ounces. To you, the mint of my life, said Harold, clinking his glass to hers. You're not worried who that was. Might not be so good for them to find me here, to find... It's no problem, mi amigo, she put her feet on his again. My world, well, it operates a little differently than yours. Do not worry. We are safe. She took a long sip from her drink, tucked her bra strap into her dress, and smiled at Harold. You look so like the touristas who came to Havana. When I was growing up, sometimes they throwed money at us. Sometimes their rings or their watches. We were just girls dancing in the street. In Cuba, everybody dance. Everybody sing. You don't got to be a celebrity. Her eyes followed the smoke to the ceiling and then far away. And those white men, they were so rich and so nice and so glad to be happy. When I see you, she caressed his hair and fingered his gold cufflinks. I am there, a pretty girl in a flowered dress, music pouring from every shack. Squinting against the cigarette smoke, she suddenly reached out and pushed Harold's lip up. How those crowns working for you? Fine, he gawked. You do good work. Real good work. I could send you more people if you wanted. What would those trailer folk think of her? Of her dental license from Havana? Their brains had solidified. No imagination. No guts. And Myrna, man oh man, she'd call the authorities. She was a stickler that way. Felicia sighed. Better no. One day I get my American license, but, well, my people don't care shit about a piece of paper. She swirled her drink and the mint rose and fell. But they don't got no money neither, she laughed. Felicia picked up the perfume Harold had given her, caressed it, and sprayed a bit more on her wrist. Thank you again, querido. She tucked the bottle into a bottom cabinet, but not before Harold saw an array of jewelry boxes, perfume bottles, champagne, tins of caviar. It took his breath away. Words stacked up in his throat, but he swallowed them back. After all, who did he think he was? It was Friday, 3 to 4. Not even prime time. She never promised him anything more. He took a deep breath. Listen to this. Leaning forward, she put her hands on his cheeks, tenderly inserting the CD into its case. She put in a new salsa disc. Arriba, arriba! I show you a new step. She pulled him up and danced around him in her stocking feet. Tucking her body close behind him, she held his hips, moving his legs with her own. His time with her was almost over. He tried to concentrate on her warm softness pressed against him, but the sight of those gifts distracted him. He was Friday, 3 to 4. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, knock at the door. 3, 4, shut the door. 3, 4. When the song ended, Felicia kissed him lightly on the cheek and escorted him to the front door, peering out once again to ensure the coast was clear. Harold walked to his car, started the air conditioner, removed his cufflinks, and popped a peppermint in his mouth. The palms had given him some shade, but it was another Florida scorcher, the heat sucking up all the air. He felt almost too exhausted to drive. As if without his consent, the Crown Royal headed east to the ocean instead of home. Passing a burger joint, he thought momentarily of getting a cold drink, but the place was infested with teens engrossed, Harold presumed, in some tiresome mating ritual. He parked on the beach and watched as the waves sloshed back and forth over the sand. The constancy was peaceful, familiar, reminiscent of the Nebraska wheat fields that had surrounded and nourished him. The salty air revived him somewhat, and he was pleased to feel his exhaustion being replaced by an eagerness to get home. Myrna would be back from the pool by now, resting a bit before dinner. He longed to lie beside her, their fingers intertwined. Those few moments when her body was still cool from the water and just a little tired. Sometimes quiet, sometimes talking about the day. Impossible, of course, but he wished he could teach her to tango. Thank you.